Hello and welcome to episode 48 with an episode written by the Gravelstone. Science fiction and hip-hop are two genres that on the surface should never meet. Hip-hop was born out of the real-world streets of cities like New York, based on racial tensions of the times, and sci-fi serves as an escape from the real world, being based in a fictional universe, often in the future. However, a testament to these two genres is that chemistry does exist, and it comes in the form of Deltron 3030. By the group of the same name, consisting of Del the Funkee Homosapien, Dan the Automator, and Kid Koala, Deltron 3030 takes place in the far future of 3030, where thoughtful rap has all been outlawed. From this bleak future rises the hero Deltron Zero and his partner Automator, who use their rhymes and beats to tear down the oppressive system they are trapped within. While Deltron 3030 may take place in a full millennium in the future, the story it has to tell is one tied to the present. By telling the fictional story of a world trapped in oppression, Del hits close to home and provides a record with pointed social commentary and a future that may come sooner than expected. The album begins with a short introduction which establishes the themes and ideas to come in addition to the album's main villain. Damon Albarn, from the British rock band Blur and the Gorillaz, gives a short speech that states the year 3030 and paints himself as an employee at the corporate bank of time, which is coming back into power. This narration hints at two things. The first comes in Damon's inclusion of the word corporate, showing that corporate power is coming back in the year 3030, but the intro also hints at a wider theme of humanity's return. History is full of oppressive systems and rebels who fight them, and the conflict that Deltron will present over the course of the record might be one of futuristic mechs and planet hopping, but it's not alien. In the current world, conflicts like the one Deltron fights occur every day, so in telling the story of 3030, Deltron is actually telling the story of the present, albeit in a different way. On the album's intro, the listener was exposed to the record's conflict. In the oppressive future of 3030, the government has taken over, but as the intro also stated, humanity is built on balance, so with this unjust system in place, a rebel will rise up and take back control. The rebel of Deltron 3030's story is Deltron Zero, and 3030 serves as an introduction. The track begins with a small historical rewrite showing how space travel advanced at a faster pace in the fictional world of 3030, where Apollo 9 landed on Mars. This helps to establish the world of the album, one with mech suits, magic and space travel, all of which tie into Del's story. Del introduces himself in his first verse, saying he's the hero, Deltron Zero, who's rising to fight against the unjust system. Del gives more context to his situation with the remainder of his verse, showing how in the world of 3030, thoughtful rapping is a lost art form, hated because it's used to spread negative messages about the government. In the world of 3030, music has been replaced by meaningless, inoffensive garbage, and Del plans to right this wrong using hip-hop, an art form that's inherently black, to break through with a profound statement of individuality. Del's plan to tear down the established system is a noble one, but also one that's detrimental to those in power, and so Del is arrested. Del frames himself as being trapped in a cell and uses a clever lyric to sum up the reason he's been locked away, saying, "For the pure verbal, they said my sentence was equivalent to murder." This line uses two meanings of the sentence, one being a stretch of jail time to show that Del has been locked up for the same amount of time as a murderer, and the other being the use of a sentence as a string of words, showing that Del speaking his mind is viewed in the same way as murder by the system. However, Del doesn't let this oppression hold him down, using his time in jail to listen to the injustices perpetrated by the system until he breaks free with the help of a magic portal. Del is confusing the kids, or encouraging self-discovery and individuality in the new generation with the use of his rhymes. Del is beginning to make cracks in the system, comparing himself to the character Neo from The Matrix, who rejected and eventually took down an unjust system. Through repairing the world with individuality, Del is freeing others from the system and making a path of change. 3030 is the album's true introduction, setting the stage for not only the journey of Deltron, but the wider system as a whole. Del decides to participate in a rap battle to inspire others with his rhymes and practice his skills. This skit shows an advertisement for the rap battle, where the advertiser tries to hype it up to an outlandish extent. This track sees Del dropping clever and witty bars in the rap battle established on prior skits. The track takes its hook from the song What Can the Matter Be by the Poppy Family. That track focused on the discrimination of African Americans. Del ties into this in the world of 3030 with the system telling him not to rap or speak his mind, much like the oppression during the civil rights movement. This also helps to tie the world of 3030 to that of the present. The system in 3030 is representative of the government and their attempts to silence minorities. Del insults rival MCs and rejects conformity, showing the exciting nature of someone who's rejected the system. Del makes an interesting reference at the end of his first verse that carries into his second, saying he's like the fictional character Optimus Prime fighting against the Decepticons. However, he phrases it where the Decepticons can also be heard as deception. And since Optimus in Latin means best, it can also be interpreted as Del fighting against the deception of the system for the best outcome. This track paints a picture of Deltron's initial attack on the system, essentially showing him making first contact with his enemies, one which is positive for him. Del opens the track with a short intro directed at the system, where he says his free thoughts will leave his enemies with their mouths hanging open, due to how unorthodox his free speech is. Del concludes the track with his third and final verse, saying he's on the rise while the system is falling. Del's quest against injustice has made him a loved legend, and after a positive contact with the enemy, Del sets up his base on Mercury. In the music video for Positive Contact, Deltron wages war with the mechs and takes over Mercury, so it can be assumed that the base Del spoke of capturing on this track was in fact on the planet. This track serves as a small world-building event coming after Del's attack on Mercury in Positive Contact. The story sees a salesman trying to sell customer watches, telling them that they should purchase a watch because there will be an event in a few days that makes the telling of time difficult. The salesman, called Jeffrey Hull, is alluding to the virus that Del will release on the government on the next track that will render their electronics unfunctional. On a later track titled Time Keeps on Slipping, this idea is directly called back to, with Del's war waging on and time becoming lost. The track begins with narration from an unknown government official telling others that controls will have to be imposed in the face of Del's virus that will thrust the world into chaos. Del opens with a chorus where he outlines his plan to create a virus that will throw the system into complete chaos through the shutdown of their computers. Del explains that since the government refuses to help bring peace and freedom to the galaxy, he's going to thrust them into anarchy. This track comes in the direct aftermath of Del's virus and sees a university called Baymar College being hijacked by Del. The song opens with a lifeless advertisement for the college telling possible students that if they attend, they will be able to advance in simple office jobs. The advertisement ends with the message of upgrade your grey matter, cause one day it may matter, referencing the college's desire for their student to become smart and work in a dead-end job for the system. Del takes over this broadcast with the same message, but the intelligence Del is urging the students to gain is that of free thought and individualism. Del opens his verse saying it's time for his listeners to upgrade and load into their brains the message he's teaching. Del encourages self-discovery, tells of the oppression going on in the world, and also talks about how he refuses to conform to rules. He makes use of what he calls development kits to help his listeners understand his more complex concepts, and insults other MCs for not being able to inspire change in others like he can. This references the countless branch-off rappers who came after Del that only serve as a hollow imitation of himself. This skit sees an unnamed narrator who's a pessimist and refuses to accept change. This person doesn't want change, but rather a simple escape from his issues. These types of people are those that Del dislikes, and ones who won't accept change and support his radical ideas. Del dedicates a song to the mastermind of his operation, Dan the Automator. Del describes Dan as a nature-defying electronic monolith who can fuse together an immaculate beat for Del to lay waste with his rhymes on. Dan and Del are an unstoppable team, using their combined skills to spread their message into the minds of the new generation. In a short bridge sampling the track Loud 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 by Aphrodite's Child, a woman makes reference to a day when the oppressive walls and technology of the cities will fall down. revealing the naked souls of the citizens. This is what Del and Dan are fighting for, a future where people can disconnect from the monotony of the world and look at themselves and what they want. Del goes on to describe the beats of Dan as less of a beat and more of a symphony of sound. This symphony is one of freedom and individualism, and how Deltron plans to spread its message. Dan and Del arrive on Earth at the end of the track to stop the War of the Worlds, or bring peace to the planet. Here the government interrupts the lives of citizens to show them what they perceive to be high art. The joke here is that the movie they reference, the 1983 film Strange Brew, and the people they highlight as latter-day Renaissance men, Bob and Doug McKenzie, are both idiotic. Del is pursuing another form of ancient art, rap, and in this art, it encourages enlightenment and questioning of the system, something the government's strongly against. Madness serves as the album's centerpiece, seeing Del having made progress in his goal of creating a group of rebel MCs to combat the system, but not yet having won his war. Del begins the track by outlining the progress he's made, saying that in the year 3030 everybody wants to be an MC. Del attempts to strike a chord with his followers, telling them that despite the moment's challenges, they should push forward for a brighter future, where classism, racism and government control are abolished. Del says that a lot of people who don't understand the culture might fail at rapping because they have little concept of the issues that hip-hop was built to focus on, such as black oppression. Del is tired of this reaction and no longer relies on mere karma, forcing these people to wake up. Del would love to become more than just a rapper and become the champion for serious change, but due to lazy people who refuse this change that he proclaims, Del's message will never be able to cause an impact since all his words have been said before and no one's really paying attention. Now, despite this sad reality, Del's love for music and life propels him to keep fighting and inspire hope that a brighter future might be possible. Cleophas references many futuristic ideas unique to Del's world, such as clones, the destruction of New York, and the rarity of chocolate chips. These talented MCs who arose from the new world of creative freedom Del built might be on his side for now, but in the future they will begin to break away, and eventually some will become adversaries to Del himself. Time Keeps on Slipping is a track and is a musical representation of Deltron's ongoing war against the system and those affected by it. This is seen within the track's hook, where David Auburn says, "No one knows the time, pass me by." Since David's other appearances on the album was an employee of the corporate bank of time, his pitiful cries on the hook can be seen as Deltron having torn down the system. Del speaks of his skills in training other MCs for battle, so, like him, they can spark their message within the brains of others. It's clear from the skit's title that the news in the year 3030 is corporate and thus only backs up the message that the government wants to push. That's exactly what occurs here. While the government may wrongly phrase Del as an alien invader, in some ways he actually is. Del opens the track Turbulence remix with a hook saying, "I envision turbulence and murder since it's an everyday occurrence." This line shows Del's philosophy, that while the future might bring war and death, it's worth it, because much of that is already occurring in the streets every day. Del opens his first verse with a dedicated attack against the system, insulting their authoritative nature, but also insulting foolish rebels who are caught up in drugs, and too caught up in drugs to properly combat the system. To the government, the people are nothing more than property, which they will happily force to live in dire conditions as long as they're profiting. In the world of 3030, the upper class educate themselves in flying cities high above the lower class, who spend their days working in factories to build the technologies that the rich use. This is an obvious parallel to the real world, where the upper class use technologies that the poor are forced to slave over. For the entire album now, Del has been fighting against the unjust system of Earth, gaining support from other MCs and fighting a never-ending war on Time Keeps on Slipping. And now he needs a break. So when an advertisement for an intergalactic rap battle arises, Del jumps at the opportunity despite his prior commitments. Deltron make their way to the Galactic Embassy to enter the intergalactic rap battle, attempting to bypass payment due to their heroic deeds. It's a track that represents how powerful Deltron really are in a battle rap, easily being able to outdo any opponent as they face one on Mercury again. Love Story takes place in the aftermath of Battlesong, which shows that there's no happy ending where Del triumphs against the system. Instead, the album's narrative exists to tell the story of himself, an aspiring activist who becomes disillusioned with his true goals for change, eventually only wanting fame and fortune, and finally becoming so lazy that they can't even pursue that, merely coasting off his prior success for the rest of his life. This is all too often the case in the rap industry, where many sell out their true desires for a quick paycheck. And with the cautionary story of Deltron Zero, Del outlines how many MCs can waste their potential doing so. On the album's final track, Del breaks character for the first time on the whole record to outline the album's lessons. The track opens with Del saying, "You try to get over, you're gonna go under," essentially saying that while many try to rise above the corporate system, like Deltron Zero, they eventually cave and fall to the very principles they once refuted. Del preaches his lessons on the first verse, saying that it's unfair to judge people based on their environment. While there are many who go against the lessons of black empowerment from Del's hometown, he looks past them and draws his influence from the Black Panthers, a group of racial activists formed in Oakland. While people might like to say that Del's just a whiner, these are the same people who hate children merely because they weren't taught algebra as a kid. While as a kid they fought for the very thing schools now have, they are upset that they didn't reap the benefits of their actions. This is the memory loss of the track's title, where many attempts to make change and inspire those who simply complain about the world without taking action. But they grow tired of activism, resolving to dislike change and becoming the very people they wanted to inspire. The album ends with a recording played from the Arsman 640, an ancient German recording device. The message the recorder presents is the same from the album's opening skit, truly proving that the conflict between corporate power and rebels against the system is an eternal one. It's almost a representation of how Newton's second law, aka action and reaction, are constant. While Deltron 3030 may have told a grand story filled with action and battles, the real war has only just begun.